Now you will see the process on the shield that is very useful to make a brief summary of the process. We start with ochre tones and we mark light areas. And at the same time, we start drawing some shines to simulate the metal effect. We draw some lines and some bigger areas, taking into account that the position of the shield will be slightly tilted. And we have to take this into account to mark those more intense shines and the darker areas. With a lighter tone, we keep pushing on the main shines and the general planes, and at the same time we draw secondary shines. Right now, in this case, we are drawing some lower and less intense reflections. With a little bit of green and a more saturated yellow, we create a new light to increase the contrast. We are constantly drawing with the brush like on the previous step. You can see that this is a more intense light. It's also more saturated because it contains that green with a lot of yellow and that more saturated ochre. And at the same time, we add definition on some parts, outlining the edges and marking those screws it has. Now, using basic skin tone that has more white, we increase contrast and light. We keep outlining because it's very important to create that non-metallic effect. Now we add one last light, some lighter shines, adding a little bit of ivory to the mix that has more white in it, and we keep pushing on the main reflections. In some cases, for example when we outline, we alternate lines and points to create the effect of eroded metal. This gives us the sensation that it's metal. Now we add some washes with a more saturated but darker tone, more orange, mixing or grant a contrast with a little bit of hard red. Now we have to bring back the light because we have lost it adding color. And you can see how we balance thinking if we need to increase the light on some areas to boost the effect, or if we need to add some orange tones to add more contrast to the shadow. We go back to the main shine with a more intense plane because it needs to be more intense to increase the contrast and the non-metallic effect. Because it's the first time David painted that shield, he needs to keep balancing and considering if there are some parts that need more light or more saturation, or if he needs to increase the contrast even more. With a very light tone, we keep pushing on the most intense light points. That will increase the sensation that what we are seeing is metal. With this step, we will achieve a lot of definition. On some parts, we paint a very sharp shine to increase the sensation of a very intense reflection. With some yellowish tones, we smooth the effect and we clean some parts where the gradient is very exaggerated. Now, as we did on the Stormcast, we add some color filters with this yellow of the previous step, exaggerating those final shines. Now we add this yellow tone. With a hull red, we add more intense tones to the shadow. The tones are more saturated and more reddish, to increase the contrast. And lastly, we bring back light, adding some last lights with tones that have a lot of white, very light tones, mixing a little bit of ivory with yellow.